Hello there, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey today. We're here on the Outliers Edge Roundtable, where we bring together outliers who are finding their way to make an incredible impact in the world. And today we're going to be expanding upon how four outliers are doing just that. We're looking at how they build their income, how they build their impact, and how they build their own integrity by staying in alignment with themselves as they continue to bring out something that only they can. And so I'm honored to be in space with the four of you here. I want to make sure that outliers out there get a chance to get to know the outliers here. So why don't we go around here, and what we'll do is that we'll share with them, we'll share with everyone, letting us know about uh, your name, where you are in the world, and what you do for business and your impact. So you can share about your podcast, your business, and beyond. Right? Why don't we start off with Raquel, and then we'll go over to Zach.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's nice to see all of you. I am a owner of Veisaga Coaching and Courses. So we do a variety of one-on-one coaching, plus different courses, workshops, somatic healing events. And I am the head of 14 coaches now. 13 of them work under me. I've trained them. They did all of my curriculum. And they're professional women, many in the psychology world already or counseling world. And they just saw such a benefit to what I created that it's now a team of 15 of us. So it's 14 coaches and admin.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. And now, like, I got a chance to spend some time with Raquel earlier, and like, I'm floored by what you do. I think it's absolutely incredible, and I'm really excited for us to dive into that and for Outliers to get to know you more.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's go to Zach and then Kylie.
My name's Zach Thomas, and I do events. So I'm from Oregon, was born here, still live here. I started a company back in 2006, just me trying to figure out how to DJ after I sucked at being a rock star, and kind of at least that clicked in my brain. So tried to figure out, well, what could I do with the rest of this equipment that I had left laying around? Found some people that needed a terrible DJ, and I was their guy because I was cheap. I learned what not to do pretty quick, and then just kind of evolved over the years from then. So kind of at some point in time or another, I've kind of had my hand into all sides of at least the wedding business, between whether it was DJs, photo booths, or even had a brief stint doing a venue during the pandemic. In 2024, my company, yeah, we're still doing weddings across Oregon, still wrapping out the season here as the summer's ending. And then I also, as things shifted on me a few years ago, I took a job as event director for one of our, not really a competitor. I mean, the owner was a friend of mine, but he ended up hiring me a couple of years ago to run his side of things when he had moved to another part of the state. So been doing that, and basically day in and day out, all day long, talking to somebody about a party somewhere. That's what I do.
You know, Zach, I wanted to say this right off the bat. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm also like really like I'm captured by your simplicity. You know, you're like, I'm Zach and I do events. Period. You know, there's so much afterwards. There was so much afterwards there, but it was like it was so simple, so clear. I get it, and I'm glad that you choose to lead like boldly and simply in what you do. Thank you for being here, Zach.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, let's go to Kylie, and then we'll wrap up with Michael.
Great. Well, I'm Kylie Cross, and I'm coming from the great state of Texas. I was born in Michigan and lived over on the East Coast where Raquel and Zach are, but love being in Texas. Never thought I would. And I am a life coach. And I started a podcast with my sister about 2 years ago. So it's inspiring even just to hear Raquel and Zach's stories of like they've been in it for a while and had great success and grown. And so it's easy to feel like, oh my goodness, I'm just a newbie at all of this, but someday just to dream and to be inspired and to just be somewhere down the road is exciting to be on this journey. So I feel like I was totally born to be a coach. I didn't know it until I was 40, and now I'm living my best life in my next half of it. So that's me.
For being here, Michael.
So my name's Michael. I'm from London. So I'm far away from you guys. Hello. And I am what they call a NFT photographer / blockchain educator. So I do photography as a part-time business, doing weddings, concerts, all of that jazz. But then I turn it into non-fungible tokens on the blockchain, which then do earn me some extra money, but at the same time they're used just for proof of ownership. And then so that's my be it me not you side. And then through my circuitry hub insights, I use my blog to educate people on the emerging technologies through blockchain and how they could either use them in their business and how it could change money, or how it can change the way we store data online, or how you can protect yourselves by owning your own assets, data, information online.
Well, absolutely glad to have you here, Michael. One thing I'm going to ask here, Michael, it feels like your microphone might have changed and since we got started, and I'm hearing some static while you were talking. We're able to hear you, but I think if you can get on top of that, then we'll be able to play a little bit more here. Woo! We keep things real here in the Outliers Edge Roundtable, and let's start off with being real. All right. The first question I'd like to ask, I just really enjoy it, so I'm asking it every time, and I'm asking of every person, and the question really boils down to this. What's the belief that you had about success, whether it's about business? Yeah, let's do business here, about success in business here. That like over time, you've learned that like it's just not true, or at least it's not true for you, right? Maybe it's true for 97.5% of the other people out there, but this belief that you had about what business was or what business success would be for you, and tell us about what you have learned since then. We'll do the same order of our introduction. So we'll go to Raquel, then Zach.
So for me, success, I had a very clear picture of it since junior high. I remember a presentation where I did my money cake, and the success was that until everyone's okay, no one's okay. And that whether we want to recognize that we are all one or not, it doesn't change the fact that we are all part of the fibers of the blanket of humanity. So early on, when I was an entrepreneur at around the age of 9, 10, I would go down to downtown LA and buy earrings and then retail them for 2 or 3 times the amount, and that's how I would feed my family. I was very early on in my life. I had to take a lot of responsibility. I basically was emancipated at the age of 13 and a half, and I started my own federal ID business, brick and mortar, at 19, and I opened my yoga studio at 29, and I could say I started my coaching business at 39. And success was never the metrics that most people see. For me, the metrics of success is that we are okay. And so I think it came a lot from even though my early beginnings, I had a very lavish life. I think the necessity that came in my later early years, like 9, 10, when my housing and just my lifestyle changed dramatically, and it just became, it wasn't a sad or a negative. I just saw the need that people are hurting and people need support. And I don't see that as just financial. I feel energetically. You could be, I like the saying of Alicia Keys, some people are so poor that all they have is money. So success for me is definitely just the resiliency of the greatness of the human spirit.
Ooh, thank you for that, Raquel. Thank you for bringing us into that space here. Zach, how about you? What's a belief that you had that is transformed? And then we'll go to Kylie afterwards.
So a couple of things spring to mind, I suppose. The first one is I believe that when I was a child, or even in my younger days, I held the belief that as adults, people actually knew what they were doing and what they were talking about. And I thought that they were right. And then one of my other hinges took me until I was about 30 before I put together that 2 things can be true at the same time, and many other things can also be very true at the same time, even though they're paradoxically opposed to each other. That's the big one for me. Just, I suppose, in recent memory. Raquel talked about a couple of things. blankets of, you talked about it, so it's like with some of your somatic healing and stuff that you do. I suppose I've never been there and I don't know anything about that, so I'm curious about what that is. But I do look at one thing recently. I've been going through my genealogy and I've been looking at, the name Thomas and where we really come from. And there are a lot of stories in Wales and Welsh bards about the people that existed, that describes, nothing really new under the sun. And, in some regards, there's a lot that we can pick up from the people before us, in my belief, or to teach us and to coach us even that way. How did they do things that were good, bad, none the other? Why did they make these sort of decisions? I believe that looking into those sorts of things are interesting. Where the spirit of it all lands, I couldn't tell you anything about all that, but I'm sure Raquel can.
You said so much. I'm like, oh my gosh. And but like, for one thing, you said that things can exist simultaneously and be polar opposites. Well, we are multidimensional beings. We do live in a multidimensional world, and we're so binary, right? Like good, bad, evil, right, wrong, black, white. And so we limit. And when you said the whole like getting to know from our past and our genealogy, and I would invite us to make the question, do we even know ourselves? Because that's one of the things in my journey that I have found when people ask me, like, how are you so able to do what you do? Because I can really connect with people. Let's just put it that way. But what I mean by that, I can only do that because I say you can only meet people to the depth that you've met yourself. You can only go as far, and you can only take others as far as you've been yourself. And me, myself, even without my ancestry, I am a multidimensional being, part of a multidimensional universe. And I think that what you said, it was just so much, and it was so beautiful, because definitely there's so much there to talk about. But Kylie,
I could go on, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Let's keep some of these threads going. Right, we'll come back to this here. I am curious for you, Kylie. Like, what's the belief that you had that you were carrying that you ended up transforming it, and how did that work out?
Yeah. I think, being able to put that into words today, I think I believed in a very small world. Don't rock the boat. I'm not a people pleaser, but I was an authority figure pleaser. And I willingly, happily just kind of felt like, Zach, where you're like, okay, grown-ups just know what's best and you just do what you're told. And like, don't get in trouble is the worst thing you could possibly do. Mm-hmm. And what that manifested in me was a very small, scary world. It just promoted more fear and more smallness and more hiding. And I think that's really what kind of even brought the transformation for me to even start the work that I'm doing, that now is like, why are we afraid of even ourselves? And the more we protect and hide ourselves from the world, because it is multidimensional, like we're so intertwined. Even like we can come from completely different backgrounds, big trauma, little trauma, whatever it was. At the core, we all still really want to be seen and heard and loved, and are faced with insecurities, and are faced to either be a victim or to be owning our life, right? And I think for me, to me, success was stay small, avoid pain, avoid struggle, avoid, things that were going to cause me to have to participate in my own life in an uncomfortable way. And I think now success is like being willing to do hard things, like to choose character over comfort, to choose why not instead of why should I, and being able to just be secure in our own self to participate in the world that's not as scary as we want to make it seem. And we are more connected than we are different. And how to I have been given a very specific purpose and an identity. And I think only in that, when we really live out of our purpose, do we really find success and security in who we are and our purpose in life.
Thanks for that, Kylie. Thank you for bringing that in here. I'm going to play with that in a bit here.
Yeah.
And then Michael.
So for me, it's sort of a technology-based way of thinking. So I've always looked at technology as a transformative idea, and through my photography, I was sort of, in a way, trying to show how we all feel in a world that's closed and everything else. So I had a series where I called it the mirror, and I would just have a picture frame, and everything in the picture frame was in black and white, but no, in color, sorry, and then everything around it was in black and white as a thing. And then when I came across the blockchain stuff, and that became my sort of way of showing people how we can embrace technology to move forward, to better ourselves in a way, because with that we could become our own custodians, we can become our own bringing back ownership of our data, bringing back ownership of us, essentially, because everything you do on it doesn't need an intermediary like life does. So it's all sort of, it helps you to become yourself again, in a way.
You know, it's taken me here to where I think the next question is going to lie. And for me, it's around like the unconventional juxtapositions, whether it's unconventional or not. Michael, when you describe what you do, like I'm like, I've just never heard of or thought of it like coming together in that way, you know. And it might be like there's a whole group of people who just like just think this way, or just like there's a whole industry behind this, and I'm becoming more, I'm finding out more about it. I love this space because like innovation gets to live here. And so I'm curious for each of you here, and like if you can share something that you found as like a juxtaposition of, like, I don't know, maybe either unconventional things that you brought together, two things that seemingly may not have added up together, almost like exactly what you're saying. Two things can exist as true simultaneously. What's something that you found that that you do differently, that innovated the path for you? And it may not be like the whole industry took on, but it's like something that you're like, hey, this is something I uniquely do, and it's readily available.
I can share if I'm
Please.
understanding the question right. I think it's kind of more of what I'm hearing in it is a mindset and a concept that I was given in some transformational training that I have that I now use in my life, which is replacing our buts with ands. So any part of life, right? We come up with this like, I'm a mom, but I want to work, but I want to stay home, but I want to provide it, right? All of these buts where it feels like we can't do both. I want to be in this industry, but I'm not qualified, or I don't have the skills. And when we replace our buts with ands, all of a sudden they're allowed to coexist, and then we can start making decisions about it. So what am I going to do now? Because they both are true. And I can grieve like a loss in my life, and I can still have joy, and I can still participate. And so I think that would be just a way that I live, that I help with my clients to just own replacing our buts with ands.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kylie. I like deep resonance there. Zach, you may have had something to add as well.
Oh, somebody actually told me that probably 6 or 7 years ago, one of my friends, and I've tried to adapt it to, because there is some power in the language of like how we choose our words.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough, I've been pretty confident to face the challenges, whatever it is that they're, whatever field that I need to. Even if it's only to discover. Michael's a little interesting to me. I put out some NFTs a handful of years ago. Decided crypto not for me. It's just too dangerous of a space. But yeah, what was your original question? Could you?
Yeah, my original question was around the world of innovation, but really around the standpoint of like just an interesting or unique combination that you put together. Someone described like something that makes something rare is a combination of unique things, and what makes something common is like the scarcity of, or like the wide availability of the same thing. So I'm just kind of curious for you how you might do things a little bit differently, and how that like feels innovative to you.
I feel like I follow my heart and my intuition more than I think this is logically sometimes a good idea and go after it.
Okay. have
to my own detriment. I
this
follow
all right,
my
cool.
heart,
Yeah,
my intuition. Yeah.
let's do this here. I want to actually explore that because you brought in something here. So following your heart and your intuition. So the space that I would like to explore is like, how do you make that work? Right? How do you make that really work? Right? You've been in business from what you said, like 2006, right? Was when you started out?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that's congratulations. It's it's 18 years, almost 20 years now, right? And I'm really curious about like how like the bridge between like what feels right and how that translates externally. So like, okay, I'm going to follow my intuition, and I'm in the coaching space. So I hear people like say like, follow your intuition, follow your passion, so on and so forth. And they're like, I did it. I did the thing. I followed my intuition. Why don't I have the success? Why don't I have the end result? So on and so forth. And I'm kind of curious for you, like, if we looked at the following the intuition component, what's one of the things that most people miss, and or what's one of the things that you have found helps bridge the gap between just following the intuition and actually bringing it out to life?
Intuition can be greedy if we don't understand our purpose and are not following our purpose. So knowing what our purpose is, what the end goal is, I know at the end of my life what I want it to look like. I don't know what all the path around the mountains, valleys, rivers, streams, and rocks is going to be, but I know what I want, and I know the type of person that I want to be when I'm a 107-year-old, yeah, and I'm on my deathbed. That's what I know. And so for me, I'm a weirdo. I guess that's why I'm here. You figured that out already and invited me, even though I haven't even made an episode on my podcast for quite some time. But I'm a weirdo that I do even keep a list of principles and things that are important to me. So it's extremely important for me to keep my conscience clean above all other things. And whether that's treating people respectfully, appropriately, or not breaking the law, that's great. So, I mean, there's some guardrails. But when it comes to business, I suppose I look around and say, hey, this is what people want and what they need. Can I figure it out? I'm a relatively creative guy. Can I figure out how to do it? Okay, now how can I figure out where I went wrong and screwed up? It's not like it's been 18 years of complete awesomeness, through and through. There's been, it's peaks and valleys, as I'm sure everybody has had. But you got to follow your heart, and you got to maintain your principles. You got to stay true somewhat to yourself. And and when the battles come, you fight them, and hey, sometimes you do lose. But I think what you said about people following just blindly their intuition is that confusing their intuition with their own greed is a very slippery slope. And it's these are all parts of ourselves, whether they're good and bad. They're all parts of ourselves. And so which side of the intuition are we sometimes truly following? I
Well, let's
guess
open
that
this
would
up.
be the philosophical question.
We can play a little bit with that. Let's open this up. If anyone's called to share on this here, I'd love to hear from you.
So going off of like the whole intuition, and then at the same time, like what you were saying, like creating something or innovating is, I can remember intuitively getting at the gut of my stomach what I kind of rejected for a long time. So for years, people would tell me like, you should lead, you should coach. And I was just bewildered why people would think that. But I was having this interview one time with Charles Bakash, and he is from the University of South Central, USC. And he's like he's the one that directs people, like when they can't make up their decision on what to be their major, he guides them. There's like a whole thing done up on him, and he's amazing. I was trying to hire him to talk to my staff at the time. This is like 15 years ago. And in interviewing him to have him come speak to my staff, I got so clear the need for me to write, the need for me to coach. And so I intuitively followed that. And it hasn't always been easy because a lot of the information and the way I've positioned and connecting the dots of my courses, I get a lot of pushback if I just presented in general, or to just like on surface. I can't easily market myself. And so I got a contract with the state of California, County of San Bernardinos, to do different support things for their behavioral therapists there. And it's just how I present people. I get like a 10% that they're like, I see it, tell me more. But 8 to 9, like 80 to 90% are like, what is she talking about? And I'll give you one example, like in the sexual abuse. If you just took my course on a surface and just kind of thought about it, you thought you would have this whole concept that is erroneous, right? But I do present, somebody said something earlier about what's new under the sun. I invite us to understand there's a whole lot of new undiscovered within us, in our psyche and our intuition. And a lot of people ask me, and I don't just do sexual abuse courses, I do all kinds of courses. I work with rocket scientists, and I work with people that are turning fuel generators into resources, CEOs at that magnitude. I work with different CEOs in Hollywood, and they always like, Raquel, like, how are you able to connect this? And it's like, it's the intuition, having the bravery that you mentioned earlier, and being able to understand there is so much to innovate. And my quickest way is, there's this amazing, he has so many accolades, Dr. Dave Hawkins, and he wrote this amazing book I recommend to everyone, The Power versus Force. And in it, he said that if a human being raises their consciousness scale 2 to 3, maybe even 4 steps, that is like phenomenal and amazing. We could only be so lucky that most would do that. And when I read that, I had read the book, I was listening to the Audible, and when I heard that on my Audible as I was getting ready, I felt deflated. I was like, oh my God, then what's this purpose, as Zach was talking about purpose and intuition, that I took on years ago, that I can really shift the Schumann resonance scale, which is the heartbeat of all human beings. I was like, what was that about? You know, in my spirit, I was like, with God, I was like, what was that about? If this guy that is so smart, amazing. And here's the thing, I dare to create something that he said wasn't necessarily possible. And I started looking at all the clients I work with, and I'm like, they didn't just jump 3 or 4 up the conscious, because there's this actual scale that you can look up. I'm like, I took them all the way, sometimes from 20 or 40 to 500. And in that, I just learned to honor and revere and respect all the giants before us, but understand there's a giant inside of each of us. And that comes with bravery, and that comes with connecting to your inner intuition. And that comes with being willing to understand that we are innovators, we're visionaries, but so many times we just get in like this conveyor belt. And to pass it off to Michael, technology. I work with a lot of tech people now, and I'm not a tech person, but I'm learning, because working with all these different people, that is not my forte, generating and resources and coding. But I have learned one thing, it all mimics each other. When I get in conversations, I was with a coder, and I was explaining to this coder what I was doing in creating my programs. And then she was explaining to me what she was doing in coding, and it was ecstasy. We both were like speaking the same language, and we were both talking about 2 completely different fields. And because of it, we literally connected at a soul level. So I'll pass it off. But yes, that's what I would, yeah, kind of connect with everyone said.
Yeah, I want to make sure we keep the, I like to say pass up, we're going to keep the baton going here. You said something, I saw Michael have a really big head nod when it comes to it mimics each other. So I want to just like explore and see what popped off for you. With that, real quick, Michael, before we get there, Raquel, you named a book earlier, and we had some questions on like, what was the name of the book again?
It's Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. And he has a lot of books. I highly recommend that. I think he has one called Let Go. If you haven't done much healing, I could recommend you read that first. But the Power versus Force is definitely a game changer, but can be a hard read sometimes for people, but amazing book.
Oh, thank you. All right. So now then, Michael, I want to come to you. You had like a deep resonant like head nod, which you said like, it all mimics each other. What came up to you and based on what Raquel said there, and where's it taking for you?
So it was funny how you were talking about talking with the coders. So I'm not a programmer whatsoever. I understand programming, but I can't create it from scratch myself. But as you were talking about being in the same realm, it's like going back to my blog, Curiosity Hub Insights, I do something similar on there where I will bring a real world scenario and bring it into a technological base, so someone non-technological can understand how that information comes together as one. And I understand where you're coming from when you're talking that way, because sometimes you've just got to look at it in the sense of the biggest example I could give, if you was to look at a blockchain is a decentralized database, meaning it's not owned by one person, but it's still a database. So it still holds information, just rather than say Google, Amazon, I don't know, Facebook, Meta owning it. You yourself own a portion of it, whilst hundreds of others have that distributed all over the place. So it's explaining things like that. So when you're talking with the coder and being able to understand each other, you just need to find that right person that can explain that information to you that resonates, and then you connect, and then that's how you would move forward.
I appreciate that there. Raquel, let's come to you. I actually want to go to a different question really quickly and then come in here. The question I have here is around rejection, right? And I'm like, I think I'm fortunate to be in the space with you four in particular, because I feel like y'all go for things. You know, you're not just playing the same game that everyone else is playing. You continue to find ways to keep going through. And I am thinking about. I like to ask this question in a bit of a nuanced way. I don't know if I can ask it in a nuanced way, but this is what I'm driving towards. I'm curious about how you continue to like deal with rejection, or continue to like put yourself in positions to be rejected, from the standpoint of not from the like the beginner hoping to get into the game mindset, but as someone who like as people who are accomplished, you've had successes, you're continuing to grow in, and you're leveling things up, you're bringing out more for your clients, or you're continuing to challenge yourself. I'm curious about how like almost like the distinctions at like the 301 level of rejection might be. I've never like, and so I'm curious if any of you have had anything that you like to put in or share in from that perspective. And let me know if the question is not clear. If it isn't, then like I'll deal with that rejection and reframe it.
I can go. Go ahead, Raquel.
Go ahead, Kylie.
Well, I just think, I mean, that's probably the basis. I think it resonates with me most, because I think that's ultimately what I was so afraid of this whole time, right? And I thought, well, if I don't ever put myself out there, then I don't risk rejection. But it's a very lonely, unfulfilling life. And so I think for me, I had to change the mindset that rejection is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Like it's, and the positive that can happen on the outside is so much worth the risk. And so from my context, I mean, I guess we could define some terms on what rejection actually is and who's actually doing the rejecting and what does it mean? You know, I think something that I say a lot in my coaching is, you know, one of the first steps is to take our identity back from the people in the world, because we want to look to others. We want that acceptance so much. And then we get wounded so much by other people's rejection of us. They're telling us we don't have value or our purpose, or we're not good enough, or we can't do this space. And so I think until you can take that back and just be secure in who you are, I think ultimately then I'm a woman of faith. So ultimately my identity really comes from the God of the universe, you know, and the creator that ultimately gives me. But even if you don't want to go that far, if we at least take it back out of other people's hands, then other people's acceptance or rejection is just like icing on the cake. It's not the be all and end all. And we all have a voice, like somebody needs to hear us. And I think that was the coaching and training that I received was you're expert enough to just get started. Like I have my own experience and my own stories that automatically makes me expert enough to share my story and to help somebody else. And even if we all were coaches and we all coach the very same thing, we're all very different personalities. We have very different experiences. And so it's kind of like, you know, when you have people in your life and you've heard, like your mom's been telling you something for 1,000 times, and then you hear it from a perfect stranger and you're like, oh, that clicks, like that makes sense. you know, like, I think just the freedom to know that, like, if we really just want help for people and we want service for people, then it doesn't matter who it comes from. And it also then frees us up from feeling like just because they didn't accept it when I said it, but they accepted it when Raquel said it. Either way, it's freedom for them, you know? So I think when we kind of just take back the need for others' approval, then the rejection is not as devastating. And we can just let their approval or their acceptance to just be the icing on the cake and be something to celebrate and feel good. Like, it's not wrong to want the acceptance, but to not let the fear of the rejection or even actual rejection actually define who we really are. That's my thoughts.
Thank you for that, Kylie. And I know, Raquel, you had something to say as well. So let's play off that. And
So for me, there's quite a few variables there. One is because of certain things that I experienced from the age of 8 and above, I became like a coder, meaning I just understand 0 and 1, 0 and 1s. And so it was like, do I find utility in this or do I not? So like if you're rejecting me or you're, harshly criticizing me, I'm just going to find utility in it or not utility. So I'm just going to pick it up or not pick it up. And so I don't have to give it an offense or an energy, except does it hold utility for me or not? And so that was a big game changer for me. And in Spanish, we have a saying, if it's for you, even if you get out of the way. And if it's not for you, even if you put yourself in the ways, meaning, which kind of goes back to another book that I love, Course in Miracles, nothing real can be threaded. So I've never really bought into this thing of being rejected, but more being redirected and just being very clear that who I am is not defined by somebody's, I don't even want to say like they're rejecting you, because you don't even know what's on the other side and the other end. It's just, it's not a fit. It's not an alignment. That's how I see it. And if we are very big on rejection, I would just work on the resiliency of knowing like who we are. And that's something I've worked on extensively. Knowing the value of who I am is not dependent to a thing or a person.
yes, I'm hearing this element of like that multi-dimensional part coming in here and being like,
Yeah.
what I think, like one of the things I'm taking away, it may not be what you said, but one of the things I like that like lodges in for me is like, we could look at it as rejection. And then if we want to, then let's go down the resilient part and like, you can do that. Or you can look at it as redirection. You can look at it as like, is it utility or not? Like there's like an event took place. How you respond to that event and interpret it, that's on you. Like that was something that came through to me where I'm like, oh yeah, like it's fun being able to ask questions because I'm like in it there's an inherent assumption, and I used to be a retirement actuarial consultant, so like I'm very good at assumptions, and at the same time I'm like I love it when the assumptions itself gets broken. Zach, Michael, anything on this come up for you? We're gonna start wrapping up the conversation afterwards.
Yeah, I suppose, one thing that crossed my mind is that if we're doing something for somebody else other than ourselves anyways, that's something that we probably ought not to necessarily be doing if it's only to make us feel good. I think there's a better way for me to say this somehow or another, but we should probably expect to be hurt and be rejected if we're not really being true to ourselves. So maybe that's a better way to put it. Me personally, I guess I'm fortunate enough, I don't really struggle with those feelings. I mean, not that I haven't throughout time, but I think it kind of, for myself, it's all right. Well, here are the pieces that there are. Scoop it up. You put the feet forward, and you go. On the simpler things, it's like if I'm trying to sell somebody a party, let's say, they tell me no. Okay, great. There's one less person for me to call. I literally, when people tell me no, I say, okay, great, thank you. We'll try next time. I say, great, thank you every time. It really doesn't bother me. But yeah, on the deeper level, sure, there's some things that, can get to somebody from time to time. No doubt, there's always a way. Betrayal is the hardest thing to overcome in an individual, I think. But, to some extent, I think too, we just need to be wise about our own role in the situation and what we can do to fix that, and recognize that other people are not perfect either. And a lot of times it really is just their problem and their fault.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for that. Especially the last bit. I realized I wanted to say something. I was like, oh yeah, that actually hit me here. Michael, anything else on this? Otherwise, it's time for us. We have to start wrapping up the conversation here. I love the space we have, but I also want to be mindful of your time. So,
not really for me, because I'm on the same level as Zach. I don't really deal with. I don't feel it. Like if you don't like something that I've done, fine. Let's move on and deal with it. So I'm on the same mindset as Zach.
Y'all are awesome, by the way. Can I just say that? Not because y'all are like awesome, like because there's anything special, but I love being in spaces where people challenge the underlying premise of thinking, you know, and like you didn't have a problem bringing in just opening up the space, you know. And I want to say Outliers, like two things. One, you're going to want to spend more time in each of these people's worlds. Right. And so please go and do that. And my ask here is, if there's been anything in this conversation, even one element that has touched your soul, touched your heart, help bring you clarity, or help give you more courage, my ask is that you tell someone about it, you know, and share this episode with one person. I don't need you to put it out on social media and everyone. Like, just let someone that really matters to you know that there was a great conversation that would really benefit from them. And that's it. And you know, if you're listening to this, it's probably because someone did that for you. So just pay that forward, and we'll continue on from there. Raquel, Zach, Kylie, Michael, I'm so grateful for you all. We're not done just yet. We're going to just wrap up with this last question here. I want Outliers to have a chance to continue the journey with you. I want them to be able to keep going down even further with you. And so we're going to wrap with sharing an insight that you had from some part in this conversation. What's something that you're walking away from this conversation with? And, you know, if there is no insight, there is that's fine too. That could be its own insight, right? But we'll close our conversation with that in mind here. Why don't we start with Michael to share an insight, and then let us know how we can continue down the journey with you. We'll go from Michael, and then we'll go to Kylie.
So an insight I learned from the space this evening is just how diverse we can all be in different types of businesses, but yet at the same time almost be the same type of business-minded people or people in general, just in the way that we think. Because as a business person or a creative person or a blogger, in my case, that comes up with ideas and tries to write things out, it's just, we may have different businesses and different structures on how we do it, but in a way we all work at the same mindset.
Thank you. And if we wanted to continue down with you, how do we find you?
So if you wanted to find anything more about me, you can find me in two different places. So there's beitmenotYou.online, which is my photography business, or you can find me at circuitryhubinsights.online, which is my Web3 blog on cryptocurrencies, NFTs, blockchain, all of that, just mainly on the tech side rather than the how to make profit, how to do this, that, and the other.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. Kylie, how about you? What's an insight you got, and how can people continue the journey?
Yeah. I think just that I love being able to connect with people, and I love being able to have great conversations with strangers. And I think the majority of people actually are open if we just start the conversation. So I was co-hosting with my sister, who's a major introvert. Like, I was the opposite extreme of her. And so I'm just thinking of, even for those people that are out there, like, it's worth it to just open our mouth to talk to people and to share. And it's safer than we think. We're so much more similar than we think, even though we can come from so many different places. So I just appreciate being able to be in this space with all of you guys. And for you, Niiamah, to be able to just lead the conversation. It just takes one person to start and initiate a conversation, and we have no idea where it's going to go. So I had a lot of fun today. And if you guys want to find me more, I'm at beyondthewallspodcast.com. And I have my podcast is the same title up on Spotify and Apple, and over on Instagram, beyondthewalls.podcast. So thanks for the time and getting to know each of you.
Thank you, Kylie. I'll go to Zach and then Raquel will close for today.
Yeah, so I think kind of as Michael and Kylie touched on, I mean, thank you for the conversation. I do have one question for you when I'm done at the end, but I've always said and agreed that no matter where people are from, we're all the same thing. Like we're all just people, and we all have the ability to communicate with each other no matter what we do, what our political, religious beliefs are. We didn't get into it necessarily, and maybe we did a little bit on the spiritual side of things, but at the end of the day, we're all the same thing, and that's what I love, and I hope that whatever we're doing here is good for the rest of your channel too. Which brings me to actually the question that I was gonna try not to ask you right away. Was how did you come to deem us outliers?
Here goes the $1 million question. I didn't. You deemed yourself. I sent out an email, and I said it's for outliers. And I put out there, I said, I see you as one, but it's really the thing that comes in is like, it's a self-selected thing. I did diversity and inclusion for years. And what I found was that like, they kept putting me in boxes. Like, you're an African-American. You must be, I'll see you at the Black Hangout later on today. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, I feel like how do you include by dividing? And so I wanted to create a new premise and then say like, just walk in if it feels like it's right for you. And so the fact that you are here was your own selection on it there. I'll put out there because I think everyone in the world is an outlier. It's just, have they leaned into it, and do they want to lean into it? That's my secret. I feel like the Hulk in Avengers. They're like, how do you keep from being angry? He's like, I'm always angry. You're all like that's really where it came from for me. All right.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I like it. I had something similar, an idea floating. I've got a million of those things. They're cheap,
Well,
but
I love to talk to you more about it at some point here, right?
fun.
Because it's like because I know you bring your intuition and things to life. So like whatever that idea is, I'm sure there's some really merit behind it. Thank you so much for being here, Zach. Do you let people know how they can continue down with you yet?
Oh, sure. So if you want to check out my company is Apogee Event Productions. It's weareapogee.com. And probably the best way to get a hold of me is either through there. You can go through the contact forms on there, or at Apogee is Awesome's the social, or my own is King Apogee.
All right. Thank you so much, Zach. And then Raquel, bring us home.
So yeah, I kind of just, what everyone said is pretty much how I feel and what I got from it. I really enjoyed the energy with Michael, just from the whole tech and hearing Kylie, what she said is so true. Like, I remember reading the book, Conversations with God, and thinking, why do I need a coach? Everyone just needs to get this book. This is exactly what I experienced. But I soon found that some people need to hear it from me. Some people need to hear it from her. Some people need to hear it from you. Some people need to hear it from Zach and Michael in our own like pockets and circles. And so that's something that I really like enjoyed today. And for the viewers or the listeners, what I'd like to leave is something that Zach touched on when he was saying, like rejection and being betrayed. And of course, like, I know I'm a very 0-1. Does this have utility or not? But I'm not a robot, and I am a human being, not a human doing. And so what I've learned though is that we get to grow and evolve. We don't have to be, it's good to feel, make sure that we feel, but we don't have to just be feelings. We're so much more than our feelings, and we're so much more than our thoughts. We can evolve and understand that we're giving everything meaning. We're giving this podcast meaning. We're giving showing up here meaning. We're giving each other meaning if we value it or not. But the truth is that we can just trust everything is happening for us, not to us. And that's just what I have found when you look at why I became a very utility type of person. I was going through some extreme things as a junior high, and I have time to care. That's why I don't care about rejection, because I never had the space to feel rejected. I was in a big survival mode. So I just was about getting good and getting the people I love good. So I didn't have time that they were laughing at my sneakers or that I wasn't wearing the latest thing. So that happened for me. That didn't happen to me. And instead of mindset is always a choice. Instead of being the mindset like, oh, I got bullied or people are talking to me, I didn't even give them the attention. And then they stopped because I was too busy in making sure that loved ones were okay. So
You had
just
like a
kind
much
of
higher purpose playing out for you. And it's like, whatever is happening here, it's just like, it's not even hitting my radar. Well,
yeah.
I really want to say thank you to all of you for letting me hit your radar. And thank you for saying yes to this year. Just know that like, I see you, we appreciate you. Outliers keep down in their world, and know this until the next time we speak. My invitation is just to be you on purpose. All right. Journey on.